Article 39, sponsored by Steve Consilvio.
I'm going to steal a line from Bob, but laws do not apply well to this time, is how he put it. And I think we've got 4 articles tonight on property tax, which is on top of property 2.5. So I think we have a problem with how we raise revenue, and it's an old problem. And the solutions for the property tax abatements are all based on income tax or income wherewithal. So the question becomes, why wouldn't we just tax based on income tax straight through, from the town level to the state level and obviously to the federal level? Like, why do we have 3 different taxes? We've basically taken the money out of the same pockets. People have the same profile. If you're house poor, you know, because you bought a house 40 years ago, like, it doesn't make sense to be taxing somebody based on an assessed rate, which is not liquid. So that's the first one, which is why I think we should just, you know, we should ask the state for the freedom to tax the way we want to tax ourselves, rather than having the state say we have to use property tax. Because it's just, property tax puts the grandchildren against the grandparents, because the schools want money, but the seniors are on fixed income. I mean, it just creates so many conflicts that a income tax would not have those conflicts, because you could make it progressive, even if you make it flat, which it shouldn't be. It's just so much more simpler. You're going to tax people based on their liquid resources and not based on something they bought 30 years ago. So that's the first thing, is to start the process. And the thing is, you know, this commercial, I'm not going to say that this is a simple solution to implement. However, you can take whatever formula that gets created, you can run it backwards, you know, 5 years, 10 years, however long, because we have the data. This Department of Revenue has the data of how much money we've collected, how much we've paid in income tax. So this isn't really a difficult thing, but you have to have the will to do it. And so I can't ask, if I go to the State House and knock on the door, they're not going to say, oh, yes, Steve, great idea, we should do this. No one's going to do that. But if town meeting says, we want to investigate this, it would change the politics dramatically. And so that's why I think we should vote yes on this.
Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, Article 40. There was? Oh, I didn't see, I'm sorry, come on up.
Precinct 1, why can't we do the study before you go to the state?
We don't have the data. There's no data.
Would the state not give us the data to?
No.
Have we asked them?
I've asked them, no. Because if you ask them, because you would be able to tell who made how much money, supposedly. I did find some census data.
Yeah.
So Massachusetts, Auburn is very, economically, we're very homogeneous. We don't have very many poor people. We don't have very many very rich people. We're all pretty much in the middle. And you can tell that from the census data. But you have to be able to cross-reference that to property values.
Okay, but I
Because
mean,
you
if you're not
can't-
identifying a
we-
person's name, if you're just going
Yeah,
by,
they wouldn't give it me.
okay,
All I have is like a census report. I probably from the,
answers my question.
you know, but I don't think it would be hard to do.
No.
I just think, but you have to ask the question and get them to do it.
Anyone else have any questions? Article 39. Moving on to Article 40.
And the second one, of course, is about forming a CDFI, which is, which would essentially, we would create our own insurance company, and we would self-insure ourselves the same way like currently we are self-insuring the town employees for health insurance. And we do that because you save a ton of money doing that. And nobody's getting sick on purpose, and nobody's getting an unnecessary operation. Nobody is running to get extra health care. It's not that much fun. It's the same thing. Nobody's trying to burn down their house. Nobody's trying to get a leak. You're just trying to protect yourself and repair the damages and go on to the next step in your life. The insurance companies obviously are having a lot of problems because people are building too many houses next to the ocean and because of the forest fires and all the other stuff. But generically, we don't have a lot of, besides a snow load with rain on top of it, in a miraculous hurricane or earthquake, we're not really in any kind of a high-risk zone. We're paying for everybody else's high risk. So if we self-insure ourselves, and it's going to be local people picking up the repairs, there's no reason for us to be shipping money out to New York or Hartford. We're making very good profit margins. We could be using this as a municipal asset and covering ourselves. And a CDFI can also become a community bank, so we can also be borrowing from ourselves instead of, again, shipping money to New York City. So there's just a lot of different ways. It's all about the flow of money, ultimately, and changing the flow. There is still, you've all gotten my letter. Let me take a glass of water. There's a lot of the why in that letter, which I realize is not necessarily easy to grasp. And then there's the what. And the what is pretty simple. We just need to create a CDFI so that we are financially bound together, so we don't have people that are house poor, we don't have seniors that, that are stuck, or veterans, or small businesses that are struggling. We shouldn't be, and we are, statistically, thank you very much. I definitely needed that. Financially, we're all pretty similar. So we're all going through the same things. Car repairs are too much, insurance bills are too much, taxes are too much. But the money is just flowing from the taxes to the businesses, to the banks, and it's just going in a big circle. And as we keep adding our percentages, 2.5% increase in taxes, 2.5% raises, 6% in insurance rates, we're just chasing the same snowball down the hill. We're creating this whole problem. The king is gone. We can't blame the king. We're 250 years into this experiment. Something is totally out of whack when you have a $34 trillion deficit. The federal government, God bless them, have no idea what they're doing. They really don't. This country started here in town meeting. If we change, the next town will change, the next town will change, the state will change, the government will change. But it has to start here. It's not going to start anywhere else. It really isn't. I've studied too much history. I just don't see any other way we can make a change. If I had $1 billion, I couldn't change the world. This group of people can change the world. It's really that simple. And it's just by writing down different numbers. Because all of our problems are bookkeeping problems. There isn't one problem that we've discussed tonight that is not a bookkeeping problem. Change the bookkeeping, and all these problems will go away. If how many people are in town meeting? 110. 70 people vote yes. The State House can't ignore us. We have as many bodies in our meeting room as they have in theirs. And all we're asking for is home rule. We're not telling them to change it in any other town. We're just saying, let us try something. Let us experiment. Let us work together and come up with the better solution. You guys can all copy us tomorrow. Let us work on it today. Anyway, any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks. I said in the pre-town meeting, as well as in the open letter that I mailed to you, that we need to write down different numbers. And I also wrote that profit and trade are two totally different things. And this chart, which you received, I think, with the packet from the town, really needs probably a little better explanation. This really explains what inflation is and why markups really are driving our entire society and basically driving us all crazy because we're writing down the wrong numbers. That invoice that I included in the letter showing a 10% markup would be at this bottom line in this chart. And at the bottom line, you can see that if you started $1 and you went through 5 stops in the supply chain, the finished price for the consumer would be $1.46. But that's not what we're doing today. Today, we try to maximize profit. And so we've been generally falling 100% markup or higher. And this creates the same item that started off as $1 now ends up being $16. And we can see this in housing, education, eggs, literally everything. And this creates a lot of social stress, rich and poor. If you look at this line, the difference between the poorest person and the richest person is pretty extreme. They're all doing the same amount of work. There's no difference in any of these jobs, but each line represents a different society. So we can have a society where everybody is following 100% markup, but what it does is it divides everybody. Or we can have a society where we have low markups, in which case everybody is relatively equal. And this path at the top bar is what leads to civil wars. This is well documented. We also have well documented that when you have low markups, you have renaissances. So the choice is we have to get everybody that's creating inflation, which is all of us, all on the same page. I described inflation like a snowball rolling downhill. And what it's doing is it's combining percentage increases. Doesn't matter where the percentage is. It can be in wages, it can be in profit margins, it can be in tax rates, it can be in interest rates. Whichever one goes up is going to create a ripple effect in the other three. You know, our taxes are collected, but then they're spent on wages, businesses, which are profits, it's paying banks interest. And in the same thing, the interest is the revenue for the bank, and then they take that revenue and they use it for wages and profits and to pay their own taxes. So, you know, a lot of people say, oh, if you get rid of government or shrink government and you take out taxes, and you said, let's eliminate taxes completely. It's not going to change anything because inflation is the accumulation of all four of these things. When bin Laden attacked America, his complaint was about interest. If you took interest completely out of the economy, it wouldn't make any difference because taxes and profits and wages would still create inflation, would still create inequality, and you would still have all of the social complaints. The American Revolution was about taxes. The communist revolutions were about profits. If it doesn't matter if you take any one of these things out and you leave the others the same, the results will be the same. What needs to change is the numbers themselves. Smaller wages, smaller profits, smaller taxes, smaller interest. That's what will create an affordable cost of living. And that's what we're all looking for. We're looking for a cost of living where we can all enjoy our capacity to produce so that we can consume without any stress. But everybody is also acting as a pass-through. Wherever the revenue comes from, it passes through us as an expense, so we have our overhead. And so as we make the numbers bigger, we make our lives more difficult. But you have to get the government and the business and the banks and the workers all on the same page of understanding the importance of smaller percentages. The best percentage is 0. Nothing changes, everything stays equal. And then there's no stress. You got to get your ego, perhaps a little bit smaller and not believe that just because you make more that you're doing more, because you're really not. Everybody has an hour of time to spend, and that's really the most precious resource. The bookkeeping is getting in our way, and our understanding of the bookkeeping is getting in the way. But what is inflation? Well, inflation is ultimately the taxes, the profit, the interest, and the wages. That's what's really rolling down the hill. And as they roll, the problems get bigger because the numbers are getting bigger. Compounding percentages create inflation. It doesn't matter where it is. If it's in taxes, if it's interest, wages, or profit. As those percentages go up, it's going to affect somebody else, and then they're going to repeat the same behavior. And that's what's creating all of this stress. We all create inflation. There's no point in blaming other people and always being the victim. We're all the victim. We're all the crime. And that's what we really have to change. And that's what democracy promises. That's what consensus promises. That's what regulation promises. We can run the system differently and do everything exactly the same as what we're doing today. But by writing down different numbers, all the stress will disappear. We all create the inflation, but we don't all get the same benefit because the higher the numbers, the faster the wealth separates and trickles up to the top. It doesn't mean that the life is perfect at the top because the system remains volatile. We have banks that are too big to fail. We used to have 12 big banks. Now we have 3 or 4 big banks. The banks will keep consolidating as the big ones continue to fail. At some point, conceivably, one corporation could own the entire world because all the wealth is trickling up, and there's nothing to stop it if we don't stop it. The only thing that's keeping the peace is deficit financing. We just keep pumping in money because we keep creating inflation, and the government has to match because math must balance. So the government has to create the same amount of deficit as there is assets on the private side. So as we have billionaires, you have to have $1 billion of deficit. The biggest industry in the country is banking, it's finance and insurance, which is why we need the CDFI. We can have our own banking and our own insurance locally to compete against them. And then that wealth will stay in our town instead of shipping it to somebody else's town. But this is just an interim strategy. The big strategy is to defeat inflation. That's what's going to really change the system. But right now, we don't have any mechanism to work cooperatively or intelligently. And we need to do both. And that's what these two articles will accomplish. Will get us on the right path.